All his life, he was the servant at the forge, until the blade sang in his grip and named him its master. Terran had lived his whole life in the shadow of fire. Born in the lower tiers of the warforges of Karath, he was nothing more than a servant boy. His duties were simple: polish the spears, clean the soot, carry buckets of molten slag when the masters called. He was never trusted with hammer or anvil. Those were tools of smiths, men who shaped the weapons that armed the Empire. Terran only touched the finished tools of war, always a servant, never as maker. And so the years passed. He grew strong from carrying weight, but silent from being overlooked. The masters hardly knew his name. To them, he was just the shadow in the forge, a slave boy polishing the spears of others. Part 1. The Servant. The Forge of Karath was no ordinary smithy. It was sacred, built around the heart anvil, an alien relic said to have fallen from the stars. Every weapon forged upon it carried a spark of strange power. The Empire's armies owed their victories to these creations, blades that cut through steel, spears that never dulled. But not every weapon sang with life. Many were ordinary, lifeless tools. Only once in a generation did a weapon awaken, burning with light, choosing a master. Such weapons became legends, names sung in battle songs, artifacts that could turn the tide of wars. Terran had heard the stories. He polished those weapons too, though never touched their cores. He told himself they were not for him. He was only a servant. His hands were not worthy, until the day the forge cracked. Part 2. The Fracture. It began with a tremor beneath the forge halls, a groaning of stone. The heart anvil pulsed with strange energy, flaring brighter than fire. The masters shouted, scrambling to steady the molten flows. Terran, ignored as always, moved toward the racks to save the finished weapons from falling. That was when he saw it, a spear, half-forged, left upon the edge of the heart anvil. Its metal shimmered like liquid light, unstable, dangerous. The master shouted warnings, but before anyone could act, the tremor threw Terran forward. He fell onto the spear. His hands closed around its shaft, and it burned, not with fire that seared flesh, but with light that seared his soul. His vision filled with stars, his heartbeat thundered like a drum, and in the depths of his mind, a voice sang. "At last," it whispered, "you have found me." When the tremor ended, silence fell across the forge. The masters stared, wide-eyed, as Terran stood clutching the glowing spear. Its head flared with radiant flame, alive in his grip. The weapon had chosen him. Part 3. The Outcast. The masters recoiled. "A slave cannot bear the chosen spear," one snarled. "He defiles it with his touch. Take it from him," another barked. But when they tried, the spear resisted. It grew heavy in their hands, its light dimming. In Terran's grip, it sang. In theirs, it died. Whispers spread through the forge halls. The boy who polished spears had been chosen by one. The Empire would not stand for it. Weapons of destiny belonged to generals, to kings, not to servants. And so the decree came swift. Terran was to be exiled. The masters could not kill him. None dared strike the bearer of a living weapon, but they could cast him out into the wastes, hoping the desert would do the work for them. So Terran left the only home he had ever known, the spear in his hands, its light his only guide. Part 4. The Journey. The wastes of Karath were merciless. Storms of glass cut the flesh, beasts of bone and shadow prowled the dunes. Terran wandered for days, surviving only because the spear provided. It lit fires, purified water, even struck down the predators that lunged at him from the dark. Yet the true battle was within. "Why me?" he asked the weapon one night, staring into its glow. Because you were overlooked, the voice whispered. Because you were silent. Because in your humility, you listened. And because even a servant may hold the strength of kings. The words unsettled him. He was no king, no warrior. Just a boy who had polished spears. But fate cared little for what he believed. Part 5. The War. It was in the wastes that he found them, the rebels. Outcasts, slaves, and broken warriors who defied the empire. They saw the glowing spear in his hands and dropped to their knees. The star-born spear, their leader whispered. The prophecy is true. They told him of a vision, long hidden, that one day the weapon would awaken not for a lord or general, but for one of the lowest. That servant would rise, carrying hope for all who were bound in chains. Terran tried to deny it, but the rebels begged him to lead. And when the Empire's hunters descended, he had no choice but to fight. The spear moved as if alive, guiding his strikes, turning his fear into power. Where it swung, enemies fell. Where it burned, chains broke. For the first time, Terran was not servant, but master. Part 6. The Master. Word spread faster than wildfire. Across the Empire, slaves whispered his name. Soldiers feared the glow of his spear. The boy from the forge had become a symbol, a storm the masters could not control. But symbols draw enemies. The Empire unleashed its champions, warlords bearing blades forged on the heart anvil, weapons that had once been legends themselves. Terran faced them all. The spear sang louder with each battle, as if remembering wars long past. In the final clash, before the gates of the capital, Terran stood against the High Forge Master himself, wielder of the anvil blade. Their weapons collided, sparks raining like meteors. The ground shook with each strike. But in the end, it was not strength that carried Terran to victory. It was the years of humility, of polishing weapons not his own, of learning to see the smallest flaws, the weakest points. With one final strike, guided by the spear's song, he shattered the Forge Master's blade. Epilogue. The Chosen. When the dust settled, Terran stood not as a slave, but as master. The spear burned in his hands, its voice proud. You were never just a servant, it whispered. You were always waiting for the moment you would be seen. The people called him liberator, chosen of the forge, master of the star-born spear. Yet to himself, he remained Terran, the boy who had once polished weapons in silence, never dreaming one might sing for him. And as he raised the glowing spear before the freed crowds, he knew one truth above all. Destiny does not choose the mighty. Sometimes it chooses the overlooked,